My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, a music podcast where we chat to a new guest each week, talk about their life and creative endeavours, and talk to them about some of the music they love. Our show works by chatting to our guests about music, their songwriting techniques, and occasionally getting them to make you a playlist of the songs they love. Welcome to episode 220. I'm your host, Simon Fink. Our guest today is Joshua Radin. The acclaimed singer and songwriter is returning to our shores next year, and he'll be bringing his brand new EP with him, which is titled Though the World Will Tell Me So, Volume 1. In today's episode, we're speaking with Joshua about becoming a musical nomad, the story behind his start in music, and we discuss memories of previous Australian tours. Here we go. Our guest today is an acclaimed singer and songwriter who was raised in Cleveland, Ohio. Whether you know his name or not, you definitely know his music. His soundtrack moments on House, Scrubs, One Tree Hill, Grey's Anatomy, and many more. In January, he's releasing a brand new EP, which is entitled Though the World Will Tell Me So, Volume 1. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, Joshua Radin. Josh, hello, how are we?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning where you are.
No, thanks for having me.
My absolute pleasure. I know that as we are coming up to the end of the year, usually people kind of take stock on you know, the year that has gone by. Before we were recording, I mentioned that you were in Stockholm, and I thought you had maybe moved there, but it turns out that you're I would say a free man at the moment. This has been a big year of change for you.
Yeah, exactly. I sold my house in Los Angeles in February and put all my favorite things in storage, gave most of my stuff away, and I've just been nomading. I've spent a lot of time, though, in Stockholm, Sweden this year, as I've been doing a lot of recording here, and I've been making a new album. So, I've got a few more weeks here in Stockholm, and then I'm going to go play some shows in other parts of the world, and travel a bit. Hopefully I'm going to be in places that are a little more sunny because it's getting freezing here in Sweden right now.
I can imagine that there is a certain freedom to being able to, you know, travel the world and kind of write songs. How have you, I guess, firstly, how have you found the experience? Before we get into the songwriting aspect of it, how have you as just a human found that experience of kind of not being tethered to one place?
Well, I was in Los Angeles during the pandemic, and the lockdowns were so intense that, you know, I found myself. I remember at one point, when it first started in 2020, I remember counting a certain number of days where I hadn't seen another human being. You know, I think it had been 54 days in a row that I hadn't seen another person, and it was taking such a toll on me, on my soul. And after a while, you know, I've always been a traveler, but this was one of those things where I when we were finally allowed to travel again, I just told myself, I'm going to go. I'm not going to be locked into any kind of place, any part of the world, and I just want to travel spontaneously whenever I feel like it, because, you know, it had been taken away from me, and from most of us. So. It's been amazingly freeing, and also just to sort of live minimally. You know what I mean? I've always been someone who didn't really care so much about things, but it's incredible how that sort of feeling was exacerbated in the sense that I'm just all about experiences over things. That was just reaffirmed.
I imagine it would be such an incredible experience, and especially for yourself as a songwriter, as someone who takes both your own experiences and I imagine other people's experiences and puts them into these pieces of art, pieces of work. Has the songwriting process for you over this time changed in any way? I guess other than maybe the location where you're writing is different, but yeah, has the creative process itself changed in any capacity?
I think I still tend to write songs the way I write songs, and it's usually the music usually comes before the lyrics. But I would say that the main difference is, where I'm getting inspiration. And I think I used to have this feeling growing up that, I grew up very much into visual art and painting and drawing, and then I spent some time as a screenwriter, a struggling screenwriter, and before I got into music, before I bought my first guitar and learned a few chords and started writing songs. So I think growing up as a kid, I always had this vision that I would have a studio and I would, like a safe space where I'd be all the time, this cozy space filled with books and paints and easels and typewriters and instruments, all these things where I could just sit and be creative and, be in one place and feel inspired. And I think that's the main thing that's changed, is that I just want to be traveling all the time. And I don't really need anything but sort of this acoustic guitar that I bring around with me. And, I've got a suitcase and been wearing the same clothes since February, which is difficult when the seasons change. And, but the last thing I've thought about since February is buying any new clothes, or, it's interesting when you're traveling around in a suitcase that if you buy something to wear, it's like you got to throw something else out just to make room.
Yeah.
And so I don't buy anything. I buy food, drinks. I've been sort of Airbnb-ing around, just living in different spaces. And excuse me, you can tell I've got a wicked cold. It's so freezing here in Stockholm right now, and the weather's changed, and I'm just trying to battle a cold right now. Anyway, I'll be leaving in a few weeks, going to go chase some sunshine and soothe my old bones.
It is, well, firstly, I'm very excited for you to be able to get some warmer weather and be able to not have to suffer through a cold like this. And again, we very much appreciate you being on the podcast with a cold. So thank you for
not at all. Maybe
us.
My voice sounds even raspier, right? I sound like maybe I sound more serious.
I think
there's some gravitas to my speaking voice.
I feel like that you do have a very distinctive voice when it comes to your singing anyway, and so I think this almost plays into that maybe that mystery or that allure for people, that they go, it is his speaking voice, and as you said, the gravitas to it is just as mysterious as the singing voice.
Yeah, the head cold is definitely helping it, I think. But people have always told me that when they hear my speaking voice, that it's very soothing. Maybe one day I'll get into doing a podcast as well, or just recording, like reading audiobooks for people or helping them fall asleep.
I am sure that any of those products that you choose to pursue would be very popular. So if you ever choose to go down the podcasting route, please give us a call. More than happy to help. But
you can be my guest.
Oh, lovely. We podcast ideas aside, we are here to chat about a brand new EP which is coming out in a few weeks, around that time where we'll be playing in some warmer weather. We've got a brand new EP which is called Though the World Will Tell Me So, Volume 1, which is very exciting because it's kind of the first collection of songs from yourself since last year.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about these songs coming out and being in the public sphere?
I'm excited. I mean, it's it's a different process of releasing music for me this time around. I've recorded 9 albums before this, and it's always been like, okay, you put out an album when the release date comes, and this time I wanted to try something different where I just recorded 10 songs. The first 3 are out now. They started coming out once a month, each song. Then I think January 13th, the next 2 will come out. So that'll be 5. And then the second EP, Volume 2, will start coming out sporadically. It's more exciting for me that way. And I think that's, I've noticed that the last few times I've put out an album, let's say you record 10 songs. And I've noticed that the younger audiences, they're not really listening the way I grew up listening to music when it came to the LP. It seems to be a bit of an antiquated format. So I wanted to, just every month kind of put out a new song and see if it really came from, if you put out an album and maybe people, your sort of best fans will listen to the whole album. Then a lot of people, you can't expect for them to listen to all 10 songs, or at least more than once. And, the attention span is getting smaller and smaller, shorter and shorter amongst younger audiences. So, back in the day, we put out an album, let's say when CDs were around, right? When we were kids, and you put the CD in your car, you're driving around listening to it, and maybe track number 8 was not your favorite song on the album, but because it was on this one CD, it was in the CD player in your car and you're driving around, maybe you listened to it a few more times than you might have, rather than skipping or putting it on a playlist or something like that. And then after 3 or 4 times listening, maybe track 8 ended up being your favorite song on the album. But I feel like those tracks later in the album, those album tracks as they're called, they don't get any attention anymore. People just, the younger audiences listen to that 1 or 2 songs that grabs them right off the top, or maybe gets on a playlist or something like that, and they put them in their own playlist, and then they never really go back to the album. And my favorite songs of albums that I grew up loving are rarely the single. It's usually an album track that I didn't love when I first listened to the album, but took a few times. And I think that idea is getting lost, and so I wanted to try to figure out at least a way to put out new music that might help with that.
I would agree with a number of the points made there. I think there's almost something to be said about some album tracks. We'll use track 8 as an example, whereas I think some of those are, because they maybe weren't designed to be a single by the artist, that they maybe were more personal, that you're actually getting a better insight into the songwriter or the artist in that capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of times the single is just like this really hooky song that it might meant to be something for the radio that would bring the listener to the rest of the album tracks. And that's just, things are changing the way people consume music, especially younger audiences.
Yes, agreed. Is there a little bit of a freedom then, I guess, looking at like a positive side of that, in terms of not releasing an album, in terms of releasing an EP? Do you find that, I guess, is there less pressure on a body of work like this than maybe there was for like an album like The Ghost in the Wall or Simpler Times or anything like that?
Yeah, I think there is, and because I'm just looking at songs rather than an album. I mean, there is a thread that runs, a general theme in the sense that runs through the 10 songs on this album, but it's and when you say EP, album, for me, it doesn't even matter. It's not like the first EP has a one feel and the second EP has a different feel. It's just broken up into 2 5-song EPs, and then at the end of it, it'll all be on one vinyl anyway, all 10 songs. So for me, in my head, it was just, here's a song, here's another song, here's another song, and rather than it's still, to me, an album and a body of work. It's just a different way of releasing it, and I don't have to be done with. Like, I just finished the 10th song. Just finished mixing the final song last week, and I've already got 3 songs out. Whereas before it's you got to finish the entire album, mix and master the entire thing. This way, it was sort of like, I don't know. I think you're right. There was a better sense of freedom when it came to writing, recording, mixing, and releasing.
100%. I know that there's a lot of fans very excited about.
This season, Instacart has your back to school. As in, they've got your back to school lunch favorites like snack packs and fresh fruit. And they've got your back to school supplies like backpacks, binders, and pencils. And they've got your back when your kid casually tells you they have a huge school project due tomorrow. Let's face it, we were all that kid. So first, call your parents to say I'm sorry, and then download the Instacart app to get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes all school year long. Get a $0 delivery fee with your first 3 orders while supplies last. Minimum $10 an order. Additional terms apply.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
This new EP coming out, and as we mentioned before, a very distinctive voice from yourself, but also I think a distinctive style of songwriting. And I know that you mentioned a few other career choices before finding your way to the guitar. Would you mind sharing, I guess, what it was that eventually got you there? What was it that kind of was like, maybe I can give this a try, and I guess your first interaction or success with songwriting?
Well, let's see, it was about 18 years ago. I was a struggling screenwriter in New York City, and I had sold a couple screenplays, some features, but they frustratingly had not gotten made by the companies that bought them. And I was so frustrated creatively, I bought a guitar as a meditative device, learned a couple chords. I'd sit there and strum the G chord, the C chord, back and forth as meditation. And once I learned a few chords, I started learning a few cover songs, a couple Dylan songs, and Beatles, Paul Simon, Elliott Smith, some Nick Drake, some of my favorite songwriters. And once I learned a handful of songs and just started singing them in my living room, I just figured, maybe I'll try to write my own song. Who knows? And I wrote my first song. It was called Winter. And then it was just a very confessional piece about the breakup I was going through with the girlfriend I was living with in New York City at the time. And I just didn't know how to tell her what was going on in my head. So it was very helpful and cathartic. And a good friend of mine was on a TV show, and he asked me to play him this song that I had written. And I like I said, I didn't start at all thinking I was going to be a songwriter or a professional musician at all. And he asked, when he heard me play this song, he asked if I would make a demo of it and send it into the producers of this TV show Scrubs he was starring in. And a few weeks later, Bill Lawrence, the creator of the show, emailed me and asked if they could use that demo in the show. And I was like, shocked. A few weeks later, the song aired in the show, and it had such a response from their fan base that it gave me the confidence to write another song, and then another song, and another song, and I just kept writing, and here we are, 10 albums later.
I will be honest with you. I have been a fan for a number of those years, and I do want to talk a little bit about
thank you.
That experience with Scrubs and seeing you in concert as well. I didn't realise that Winter was the first song that you wrote, and through Scrubs that it, I guess, I don't want to say kickstarted, but that was,
well, for sure,
I guess,
definitely
a stepping stone. That's
yeah.
incredible.
I mean, it's interesting.
Story.
It's interesting to say kickstarted because there was nothing to kickstart really. It was, it was just it was almost like if you had a sketchbook and you opened the sketchbook to the first page and drew something, and then someone in a gallery, in your hometown or something said, "I want to put that in a frame and put it up in a show," and someone bought it, and then they kept wanting more and more, and it's just a bizarre experience. You're just sketching out something, and all of a sudden, and then 18 years later, people are like, "Hey, remember that sketch?" And they still remember it, and I just feel fortunate and humbled.
Well, it is something that I feel has resonated, as you just mentioned, for a very long time, because people still, and people who are listening to this podcast who might not be aware of your music, I think that they would be, and they don't know it, if that makes sense, that they might not know the artist's name.
I get that a lot.
Yeah. I think,
especially, I get that a lot. I get that a lot when it comes to if I'm just hanging out somewhere and find myself in a conversation with someone at a bar, or restaurant, wherever. And they're like, "What do you do for a living?" And say, "I'm a musician." And eventually it gets around to, "Oh, what's your name?" And they're like, "Oh, that's you. You're in one of my playlists," or "I remember this song," or they look me up and they're like, "Oh, wait, that's you." Or it's always interesting to me. It's I'm somewhere in your phone. You might not know it, but I'm somewhere in there.
I think that's the thing, is that having a look at the sheer volume of moments throughout the last 20 years or so that you've soundtracked on TV, film, I think there's over 200 credits that I'm not going to list because people can find that, and that's going to consume all our time. But I guess, do you, with that success that you've had, having moments in Scrubs, Grey's Anatomy, other shows like that, has that ever then, I guess, potentially had the thought of moving into scoring or soundtracking at any point?
I've never really thought about that because, scoring is such a different animal. It's usually purely instrumental. And I have some friends who do that, and it's a completely different skill set and talent. It's one thing if you say, let's, for example, like the movie The Graduate, some people might say that Simon and Garfunkel scored that film. But I mean, I guess you could say that, but it's really, they wrote songs for the film, or like Cat Stevens and Harold and Maude. But when it comes to score, when I think of scoring a film, it's like, John Williams, Hans Zimmer, that sort of thing. And that's definitely a skill set I do not possess. I mean, of course, if someone came to me and said, "I'm making this film, would you write, a handful of new songs for the film?" That would be interesting to me if I loved the film and I loved the filmmaker. But as of yet, I've been asked a couple times to write a song for a film, but never, a body of work for an entire film like that.
Right. Okay. I can.
Well, at least I haven't been asked by a filmmaker that I love.
That's very fair. I imagine that it does have to kind of be the right fit at the end of the day.
That's a lot of time to spend. Yeah, it's basically like releasing an album in a sense, and it's going along with, it's married to that film. So
exactly.
If you're going to put in all that effort to write an album, that's married to something visual, you better love that visual.
Yes, well, yes, 100%. And so I can appreciate you want to make sure it's the right fit for you and pick that right project.
Yeah. One day, maybe one of your listeners.
If there's any film, actually, well, we do have one or two, but I'll get in touch with you separately outside of this. I'll email you the details.
Perfect.
As we mentioned, there are some shows coming up. There is a small residency or a run of shows on the 5th, 6th and 7th at Park City in Utah at the Egyptian Theatre. What can fans expect from these shows in the US?
Oh, they can expect me to get up on stage in pretty much exactly what I was wearing all day. And pull out an acoustic guitar and tell stories, play some new songs, old songs. I like to pepper in, I never really do a set list. I usually just walk on stage and put down a sheet of paper with, maybe about 40 or 50 songs of mine that I remember. Because I've written so many, a lot of them I don't even remember if I haven't played them in years. And then I just sort of pick and choose based on what I'm feeling and read the room and tell stories. And it's a very intimate experience. I try to make it as intimate as I possibly can when I play on stage. I guess the main goal is when I leave the stage, I want everyone in the room to have gotten to know me better than me personally, better than when they entered the room.
I would agree with that from a fan's perspective. I, as I mentioned before, have been a fan for a number of years.
Thank you
next
so much.
Year, and this is, oh no, of course, tying it kind of all in together. At some point, I believe in the first part of next year, you will be coming down to Australia for a run of shows. I believe.
Yeah, it's been a minute since I've been in Australia, and I really love. I think I've come to play cities in Australia over the last 15 years or so, and I think I've been maybe 7 or 8 times now. It's always so much fun. It usually takes a minute to get over the jet lag, of course, and then once I've got my stage legs, I'm raring to go. And the Australian audiences have always been so kind to me. I don't know if other artists, some other artists I've talked to that have gone to Australia to play have said a similar thing in the sense that, it's on the other side of the world. So people are it's such an expense to go that people are usually very, very grateful that you've made the trip. And that's always appreciated too.
Yes. I think just touching on that, we are usually very excited and very grateful because we do recognise that we're a long way away from people. So we're usually very appreciative for people coming.
It's such a beautiful country, such a friendly country.
I think that's the other thing. We don't want you to fly halfway around the world and then for us to be ungrateful or unfriendly. So we try and show that gratitude in many ways.
Yeah, well, that's what I've found.
I think it was in 2009. So we're going back a little while, but I think 2009, a very dear friend of mine, Melissa, and we did come to see you in Melbourne at Northcote Social Club, and just what you were touching on before in terms of
what a great venue,
beautiful venue, and I think what you were saying before was very spot on. It was it was an interactive gig, and I don't mean that in the sense of.
Wait a second. Is that the gig that I had lost my voice?
I think by the end of it, yes.
No, maybe that's not the one. There was one where I think I played there years and years ago where I was so jet lagged, and I remember doctors had to come to my hotel room, and I completely lost my voice. And I think I remember doing poetry because I couldn't sing at all. So you would have remembered if that was that gig. I don't remember the exact year, but
no, I don't think there was.
Like
poetry,
I literally
so
couldn't sing at all.
No, you definitely were singing when we saw you. So
okay, that was a different gig then.
Right.
I'm glad you got to see one that I actually sang, because the one I'm talking about is the only gig that's ever happened to me in 18 years where I couldn't sing at all. It's the only time I've ever lost my voice at a show.
That's crazy. But you were still able to talk and do poetry?
I mean, it was barely talking, but I remember thinking, the show must go on, I was going to cancel the show, but you don't want to do that. It's like first rule of show business, show must go on. So I was like, well, I remember thinking I'll get up on stage and maybe I'll take questions. I mean, it was just, anything I could do, or just play guitar. And, I had no idea what to do. So, but again, that was the one show in 18 years that I had to do that.
I can imagine, though, the fans that went to that show do have a very unique experience, like a once-off that other fans don't have. So if there's a silver lining to it. Yeah, exactly. When we saw you, it was a very interactive show, but where it felt like you did have a rapport with the crowd that I felt that not a lot of singer-songwriters do, that it was kind of almost inviting, in the sense of not just like inviting someone on stage, but having the crowd almost help guide where the concert was going. And so I think...
Yeah, most definitely. There's no fourth wall.
Yes, perfectly worded. I think that is what is a great experience about a Joshua Radin gig, and what people in Park City and people in Australia, when you are down here next year, can expect. I was going to ask if you had any favourite Australian memories, but I think that you've already kind of touched on that, so I don't want to rehash that too much.
Well, I don't know if that would be my favourite memory of losing my voice. It was a unique memory, of course, having been the only time that's ever happened to me in 18 years on stage. But some favourite Australian memories. I mean, some of the nature I've experienced there, really. I mean, whether it was the Great Barrier Reef, riding horses in the outback. There's been a bunch. I had a great time once, on a boat ride in Sydney Harbour. Maybe drinking a bit too much, but having a brilliant time. Just so many amazing meals. It's tough to say. There's so many years I've been coming to Australia that I don't know if I could choose one.
No, look, that is very fair. And I'm glad, as we mentioned before, when people do come down, we're showing our gratitude. I'm glad that the Australian hospitality was to make sure that you were well fed and
always,
and fed. What is the word? Not drunk. That you're well looked after drink wise.
Australians know how to do that for sure.
Yes. Oddly, we do, yeah. Joshua, lastly, we would usually ask our guests just what they're currently listening to, if there is anything at the moment that's on high repeat for yourself.
Good question. Let's see. Well, you know how they do that Spotify Wrapped thing at the end of the year?
Yes. How did you go?
Apparently my most listened to band was the Kinks.
Okay, that's pretty good.
This year. I've been on a big Kinks kick. Of course, that's been years and years, but what was yours?
Mine was, do you know the artist Bartees Strange?
No, I don't. But now I'll look it up. I'll look him or her?
Him.
Him, okay.
Singer, songwriter from DC. Just very interesting kind of, music. But definitely worth looking up.
Thanks. I'll check him out.
No, my absolute pleasure. Joshua, thank you very much for your time today. Again, we very much appreciate chatting with yourself under the weather. We will be making sure that we put all the details.
Show must go on.
Exactly. You have lived that through and through with your Australian fans, and we appreciate that time and time again. We'll be putting all the details for the shows in Park City in Utah and the Australian dates in the show notes, as well as links for people to pre-order or pre-save the brand new EP. But thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. And I would say that anyone listening, if you want to know, I would say just follow along Spotify, Instagram, Apple, wherever you listen to music, so that you get notifications of when I might be coming to your town, because, I'm pretty spontaneous these days.
And that's our show. A massive thank you to Joshua Radin for his time. Though the World Will Tell Me So, Volume 1 is out January 13th, and we've left links in the show notes if you'd like to find his tour dates. We also want to give a huge shout out to Debbie at Wilspro Music for helping out with today's interview. If you like this show, please subscribe wherever you get your pods and stay up to date when new episodes are released. We release new shows each Wednesday and Friday morning, and we now have a Patreon, which you can find within the show notes of this episode. You can follow the playlist profile on Spotify, and you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Until next week, cheers.